What are you listening for in specific? We've talked a lot about the silent dissents, the quiet dissents that happened at that meeting. What are we likely to learn from the kind of panoply of speakers who are going to be giving remarks and interviews over the course of the week?
Yeah, I think the one thing that stood out in the December FOMC meeting is just how divergent views are within the committee. I mean, if you just look at even the dot plot, for example, in 2026, 7 participants felt that it's appropriate to hold rates steady where they are now. So I think going into this week and also just, beyond this week, we want to get a sense of who's thinking how. For example, we did hear from Goolsbee that his dissent was to some part tied to the fact that he didn't have enough data to go by, right? And so that gives you some insight into, I guess, what he's looking for. We're likely to get similar insights from others. And I'm sure, like a lot of other Fed watchers, we're trying to place them on the Dove-Hawk lineup to see exactly where their minds are at. And to give us a sense, really, of what the reaction function is for each of these participants.
Over the weekend, San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly put out a blog post, and she was talking about why she supported cutting rates the last meeting. And she talked about how, yes, it was a very difficult decision because there is this dual mandate that's very much in conflict. She was talking about inflation. Yes, I always got to talk about it. And how it has been really punitive for these families. But she said how you get down to 2% matters, because if you get there too quickly, you break the labor market, and then you've got families grappling with both above average inflation and potential job losses. Do you think that there is this theory right now presiding over the Fed to run the economy a bit hot, especially at a time of technological transition, with artificial intelligence posing some existential questions around the labor market, in order to avoid some sort of labor market scarring at the expense of inflation not getting down to 2% anytime in the near future?
Well, this is what I think stood out to me in the December presser. There seems to be this view in the Fed that inflation is really not a problem right now. In fact, Chair Powell's own comments on inflation is he's quite sanguine about it. I think in some part of the presser, he did think that inflation, you strip it out of all the tariff effects, is somewhere in the low 2s. Then he mentioned something about productivity, also likely to support the economy. So if you sort of put all those views together, I think there is this view out there in among the Fed participants that inflation is perhaps not a problem to be concerned about, and what they need to be concerned about right now is the labor market. That's perhaps what Mary Daly is also subscribing to in some sense. My own take is I think it's a little too premature to think that inflation is going to take care of itself. We at Barclays have been saying for a while that we are yet to see the full effects of tariffs on the inflation data. And sure, while it may be a one-time price shock, I think it's a little too early to declare victory on inflation yet.